morning. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship's Zoom worship service. My name is Rachel Murphy, and I'm your celebrant for today's service. Reverend Sarah is taking a well-deserved break today, so we have the privilege of hearing Patricia Heeb speak to us about wholehearted healing. We are joined today by Carrie, Bastian, who you just heard, our music director, Emerson, Paige, our religious exploration coordinator, and Blake McCallum, our Zoom tech host. Thanks as well to Was I muted that whole time?
Thanks as well.
Oh, darn. Well, let me start over, everyone. I thought I had unmuted myself. Good morning again, and welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship's Zoom worship service. My name is Rachel Murphy, and I am your celebrant for today's service. Reverend Sarah is taking a well-deserved break, so we have the privilege of hearing Patricia Heeb speak to us about wholehearted healing. We are joined by Carrie Bastian, our music director, Emerson, Paige, our religious exploration coordinator, and Blake McCallum, our Zoom tech host. Many thanks as well to Nancy Harms for preparing the worship slides and managing so many other logistics. Whether you are zooming in from down the road, across the city, from another state, or across the ocean, you are welcome here. Whatever faiths you have known or religious practices you embody, if any, you are welcome here. Whoever you love and however you identify, you are welcome here. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I want to take a moment to welcome those who are newcomers among us. We know it takes a lot of courage to check out a new community, and we're so glad that you've chosen to join us today. We invite you to introduce yourself in the chat so our community can warmly welcome you. We also invite you to fill out a newcomer card, and we'll post a link to that in the chat so we can keep you up to date on all that is happening in our fellowship. We offer lots of options for gathering in virtual community, from meditation to yoga to social hours. One event I want to highlight today is our drive-through tree decorating, which will take place on Saturday, December 5th. All are invited to bring ornaments, whether these are ones you've just made or maybe some that don't quite fit in your home anymore. And we will decorate our booth tree, which we will then all be able to enjoy virtually throughout the month of December. It is our practice here at the fellowship to donate 25% of our unpledged plate offering to support our social justice ministries. For the month of November, our partner is Planned Parenthood, an institution we have supported for many years and whose healthcare, education, and advocacy work is especially important now. 25% of our unpledged plate offering will go to Planned Parenthood at the end of the month. We will have a special time in the service for you to make a contribution, but you can access our website to make your gift at any time during the service or after. As we gather together, even virtually, we want to begin with a land acknowledgement. A recognition that the land upon which our church and homes exist is the ancestral land of the Shoshone, Bannock, and Paiute tribes who inhabited a vast region, including much of Idaho. And we acknowledge the ancient tribes whose names have been lost in history. We offer this acknowledgement as a recognition of the long history of the land, long before colonization. We offer it as an uncomfortable truth. May this truth discomfort us. And in our discomfort, may we move through the world, bringing justice in every way that we can. Listening to the truth spoken to us by Native American peoples, making space for them to re-inhabit this place, and giving them back the resources they need to heal their communities. Today's service is about welcoming healing for those broken parts within ourselves, so that we may bring healing to the world. As we delve into this tender territory, let us first take a moment to breathe together. Fill your body with breath, knowing that our breath connects us to one another, to our bodies, and to our planet. Our breath offers us the opportunity for stillness, to tune in to our spiritual center, to listen deeply to our heart's own longing. I will now read our centering poem, Second Person Intimate, by the Reverend Kendall Gibbons. As you hear the thous and thines this morning, let them be the tender, broken parts within you that you are learning to heal. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-riven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp that lights where I tread. Thy way is steep, past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream.
I've been broken, I've been blessed. Life's so beautiful, but sometimes it's a mess. Within the chaos, there's a calm. There's peace in the eye of the storm. Even after the darkest night, the sun will rise with each new morn. Open the windows and break down the walls. Let the light shine in. Find the wholeness wholeness that was there all along, and let the healing begin. You've been weary, time to rest. Times have been the worst, they've also been the best. Hidden in the heart there's a fire, a young within the yin. Let love light the path ahead, lift up the lamp that shines within. Open the windows and break down the walls, let the light shine in. Find the wholeness that was there all along, and let the healing begin. There is a balm in Gilead to make the broken whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the wounded soul. We've been so lost, may we be found still walking on up to higher ground. Deep in the struggle there is joy, the obstacle is the way. Let justice be our guiding star until we reach a brighter day. Open the windows and break down the walls, let the light shine in. Find the wholeness that was there all along, and let the healing begin. Open the windows and break down the walls, let the light shine in. Find the wholeness that was there all along, and let the healing begin.
Each week, we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of hope, love, and justice. We join in this lighting in solidarity and community with hundreds of other Unitarian Universalists lighting chalices today in homes and in virtual worship services, reminding us that we are connected to one another and to a larger community of faith and love.
We welcome back our young chalice lighters who ground us in our hope for a brighter future, even in the darkest of times. If you have a chalice nearby, you are invited to light it with our young chalice lighter, Rose Murphy. As she lights the chalice from our home in Southeast Boise, you are also invited to share in the chat where you have lit your chalice this morning, and raise your chalice to the camera so we can all see everyone in gallery view. With our collective chalices lit in all our spaces, we offer you this call to worship from the Reverend Angela Herrera.
Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life.
Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards, and the world needs vision.
Bring them with you, and your joy and your passion. Bring your loving and your courage and your conviction. Bring your need for healing and your powers to heal.
There is work to do, and all that we need to do it is here. Come, let us worship together.
I invite our children and youth and adults and grown-ups and everyone of all ages to cozy up for our time for all ages this morning. So today is going to take us all back to the Moon Village. Sarah and I first introduced you to this village when we told you the story of how they worked together to bridge to their neighbors, the Sun Village, to help after a natural disaster. And this is another story about healing, similar to bridging distances in order to help others. Ophelia was very busy in the afternoons. Today, the Moon Village is inhabited by rabbits. And sometimes that happens to people. We become rabbits. So Ophelia was very busy in the afternoons because that is when he helped the village by helping the cooks serve up lunch. First, he would set out all the big, colorful sharing plates on the prep counter, and then he helped scoop the freshly chopped salads, the fluffy rolls, and anything else they had for lunch onto those sharing plates. They offered food to every neighbor, and there was a lot of mouths to feed. And the cooks made sure that there were leftovers so people could have an option for dinner. So there's a lot of food that Ophelia is helping to serve. Today, Ophelia was rushing so fast that he tripped while he was carrying his favorite serving plate, the one that his great uncle had made. Crack! Oh no. He looked down at this beautiful plate, and it had a huge crack from the center, from the edge all the way into the center. It looked like a split watermelon, and the idea of that almost made Ophelia laugh, but he felt so much guilt. His chest was tight, and he kept repeating to himself, "I'm so clumsy, I only ruin things." He hurried up with lunch, and there were enough plates for today. Afterwards, he went up to the town or the village storyteller. The plate. He knew that the job of the storyteller was to help people understand and make new connections. And the storyteller had an idea for Ophelia. Ophelia, what if you aren't the only one who had something important to you break? The storyteller pulled out her beautiful favorite rainbow stole, and he pointed to a huge tear in the seam. She had caught it on a nail, and it had torn. This made Ophelia sad. He didn't want these things to be ruined and thrown out. After they had a kind of long discussion about it, the two looked at each other and nodded. they had made a plan. So Ophelia spent the next week talking to all of the makers of the village. The woodworkers and the quilters, the metal and glass workers. A dozen of them gathered together after their community lunch the next week with the sign that Ophelia had put out over a table. Oh no. And that sign read, "Mending table now open." The storyteller and all of her helpers had reached out to all the families who each brought with them something broken or worn that they had tucked into a closet when they couldn't use it anymore. Ophelia looked around and realized the plan was working. All of the villagers covered the table in all sorts of things that were precious to them, but were no longer working. Baskets, vases, wheelbarrows sat next to the table, big things that couldn't sit on it, beloved quilts, all sorts of things covered the table. Oop, too tall. Oh, these quilts are very big. They must be very snuggly. Something special happened while the whole village waited for the makers to fix up all of these things. Anytime neighbors or families gathered, here's all of them gathering together. Anytime they got together, they started sharing the stories of these items that they had brought with them to the mending table. The glass vase that Grandma had designed and painted herself, and how every Sunday before worship that the storyteller led, they would put fresh flowers in the vase for Grandma so she could remember. Neighbors all watched the makers hard at work at their workbenches, and then they reported back to each other what they saw. Grandma's vase now has a giant gold vein in it where the crack was. The storyteller's robe has a beautiful violet and silver trim. They were so excited to hear about how things were being fixed. Weeks went by, and at last, Ophelia put up his hand-painted sign, "Mending table now open." Everyone rushed to pick up their mended items. They were so excited to see all the beautiful art and visible mending that had transformed their tools and their objects. You could hear them, they're buzzing with conversation, sharing to anybody and everyone who would listen. At last, Ophelia and the storyteller sat down together and looked at their repaired items next to each other. Sorry, vase, I gotta move you. There. Vase in the stone, or the bowl in the stone. Ophelia noticed something. All of these objects now have a new story. A story of how they were made from before, and all of the hands that have used and loved them. But now their story includes this special event and how they were mended, how they were fixed. The story continues. Healing does the same thing, the storyteller said. When we heal, we choose to work on making our story meaningful to ourselves so that we can keep telling it. We know which parts of our story are useful and help us function, and which parts of our story help us connect to beauty and meaning, like today's event. The mending table. Ophelia smiled. He was feeling really guilty before about breaking the bowl. And he realized that all of a sudden, he wasn't repeating that story to himself about how clumsy and careless he was. He knew telling himself that story didn't help him feel proud of being a helper. So he set it down. He set that thought down that he's clumsy. He felt lighter. He thought how excited he was as the village now had more art and joy in it, and how he had been a part of building that story. I want to invite all of our children and our youth to stay in our service today. It has some beautiful music in it. And after the service, you're invited to join me in our fellowship hall, where you will stay in this main room while our adults, we send our adults off to their breakout rooms, and we'll hang out, we'll sing a song, and we'll check in with each other very briefly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jem. When we give, we say yes to something we value. We say yes to supporting the greater good. We say yes to saving what we love. We take up an offering each week to say yes to the values of our UU faith, and yes to self-sustaining ministries of this fellowship and the ministry of our monthly plate partner. Together, we use these gifts to serve with ever greater love. To make an offering today, you can go to our website at boiseuu.org and click Give in the upper right corner. Enter your gift in the Sunday offering box, and 25% of all our unpledged offering will go to Planned Parenthood at the end of the month. If you would like your gift handled differently, please use the special contributions box and write us a note in the comments about how you wish your gift to be used. You may also give using the Give Plus app on your smartphone, and mailed-in checks are always welcome. We thank you in advance for your generosity. The offering will now be received. Like many of you, perhaps, this past Thursday, I found myself reminiscing about last year's Thanksgiving. Rose and I were able to gather around our kitchen table with a large group of friends to share a potluck meal, which ended, as all Thanksgivings should, with a large piece of homemade pumpkin pie. Remembering this particular pumpkin pie, however, was a mixed experience. As good as it was, and it was very good, that deliciousness came at a price. When I took the pie out of the oven, I somehow managed to brush the one small exposed spot on my forearm between the end of my oven mitt and the start of my shirt sleeves against the top of the oven, thereby giving myself what must have been a second-degree burn. After yelping and sort of discus throwing the pie plate onto a cooling rack, I did what any sensible person would do when confronted with this kind of wound. I ran cold water over it, I dressed it with ointment, and covered it in a bandage. Over this past year, as I watched my skin blister and then heal into a pink scar, then watched that scar shrink to the point where it is now almost unnoticeable, I have thought, if only we could heal our other wounds, our emotional and psychological hidden wounds in the same way. And as we enter this new phase of 2020, with renewed hope for our country's future from the election, renewed promise of seeing one another in the coming months with the vaccines, I think perhaps we can. But what it takes is the same thing it took for my burn to heal. It takes yelping. It takes throwing the pie plate. It takes acknowledging that the wound is there. And this, I think, is one of the messages of Leonard Cohen's song, Come Healing, which Patricia will reflect upon more in her sermon. Let's listen to it now. Joys among us, and to grieve our many sorrows and losses, so that we might lift that burden for one another and receive the blessing of this community. As we receive the healing balm of music, please feel free to write your joys and sorrows into the chat box and take a moment to read the joys and sorrows of our community. As we begin, I have a joy to share from Diana Barrero Lowe, who says, Romel will move into his apartment on December 1st and is so excited and happy. This could not have happened, she says, without all of you. Thank you, Diana. And Romel, we will look forward to seeing you Zoom in from your new home.
everyone. Just wanted to do a shout out for the Stidham Family Gospel channel. Head over to their channel, check it out. They have some lovely videos. Their little girls just sing their hearts out, and I think you'd really enjoy it. So go over, subscribe, and show them some support.
Thank you all for sharing your joys and sorrows in the chat. We hold the joys and sorrows of our beloved community, gathered up with the joys and sorrows of our nation and our world. We hold them all close, breathing them in and sending forth love.
Good morning. For months, our hearts and souls have been battered. For months, our bodies have been endangered, our minds have been blown, our perceptions are twisted, our dreams have been unrealized, our patience has been tested, our security shaken, our complacency shattered. I go on and on because that's just the way of things in 2020. Even though now we are infused with hope for better times by the outcome of the national election, I've lost my place here and it's not making sense, so I'll just skip ahead. Unitarian Universalism is predicated on the principles that manifest in the work of bettering the world. And collectively, we will continue activism that's so vital to healing the brokenness of our nation. But also for these months, we have been individually living without the two elements that humans need for living an optimal life. Those two elements are predictability and control. Predictability and control were sorely missing in this past year as we relived deeply alarming events every night on the evening news, and grinding fear and grief and disbelief every day in our routine lives. Psychologically, we have auto defense mechanisms that kick in when we are threatened or under attack. And we have had to hunker down within that internal protection. Today, we'll focus on healing for our own embattled hearts so that we can come to the task of healing the world with open hearts filled with light. Leonard Cohen's song, Come Healing, offers a reflection of that process, and I will share some healing stories that bear out those words. I believe that regeneration lies deep in our inner being, where our heart center holds the key for healing the ravages of these past months. Brene Brown, who has become something of a guru, pointing our way to living congruent, fulfilling lives, tells the story of her own healing experience in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Your Guide to a Wholehearted Life. Brown is an academic and a social researcher who has devoted her career to interviewing hundreds of subjects, studying difficult emotions, and offering academic papers on her findings. There was an occasion when, in the course of analyzing her research data, something hit her in a new way that led to a transformation in her own life. In looking at her subjects' experience and their perceptions of fear and vulnerability, she saw things in a new way. She saw that indeed many struggled with those difficult emotions, but also in her huge pile of data, she saw, to her surprise, Stories of men and women were living with amazing and inspiring lives, trusting themselves, talking about authenticity and love and belonging. In the process of analyzing her data, she made 2 lists labeled do and don't. The do column was filled with words like worthiness, rest, trust, intuition, loving, belonging, joy, gratitude, creativity. She called the do people wholehearted. The don't list had words like perfection, certainty, exhaustion, self-sufficiency, judgment, scarcity. Here in her own words is her experience that led to healing. Even though I wrote the lists, I was shocked to read them. When I code data, I go deep into research mode. My only focus is on accurately capturing what I heard in the stories. I don't think about what an experience would mean to me, only what it meant to the person who told me about it. On this particular day, I sat in the red chair at my breakfast room table and stared at these 2 lists for a long time. My eyes wandered up and down and across. I remember at one point I was actually sitting there with tears in my eyes and my hand across my mouth like somebody had delivered bad news. And in fact, it was bad news. I thought that I'd find the wholehearted people were like me and doing all the things I was doing, working hard, following the rules, doing it until I got it right, always trying to know myself better. The journey of living is equal parts heart work and head work. And as I sat there that day, it was suddenly very clear that I was lacking in my own heart work. I finally stood up, grabbed the marker off the table, drew a line under the don't list, perfection, judgment, exhaustion, self-sufficiency, certainty, and then wrote the word me under that line. My struggles in life seemed perfectly characterized by the sum total of that list. I folded my arms across my chest, sunk deep into the chair and thought, this is just great. I'm living straight down the shit list. This shift in awareness, or in Leonard Cohen's words, the darkness yielding, sent Brown into a midlife crisis, and she embarked on a journey of intentional awakening through spiritual teachers and reading, journaling. Sometimes it was a painful slog, but she emerged, in her words, a middle-aged, recovering spirituality seeker who spends days contemplating things like grace, love, and gratitude, and who is happier than I ever imagined. With attention, she had found her own heart center, and it was there that she knew the experience of deep healing. She had found what Cohen's lyrics speak of as the heart below that teaches to the broken heart above. I like to think of that heart below as our soul. In her book, Broken Open, How Difficult Times Can Help Us Heal, Elizabeth Lesser discusses soul in this way. She calls it an endless river of pure energy that deeply flows within us, a low and rich song that hints of joy, liberation, and peace. Soul, she says, wants you to go beneath. It leads downward, beneath the surface of your troubled mind, your bad moods, your mistakes and patterns of misfunction, into that wise, whole, brave part of self, which carries an ageless, longing for truth. It is this soul energy that carries and offers healing. And it is when we gather up the brokenness that we find our way to that source. The experience of my friend Deborah illustrates and inspires. Some years ago, this bright, dynamic, engaged, personable type A woman contracted the West Nile virus that left her physical system depleted and fragile, and her identity in the world as she had known it gone. She was a strong woman, and she believed to her core that she would be healed. But as time passed, she had to face the reality that she could only heal physically so far, that she could never return to the life and the self-image that she had known. It was then, she said, when she truly faced her brokenness, that she knew it was her choice to live with grace or to live as a bitter, angry person. She chose grace. Prior to West Nile, with its devastating limitations, she had already been looking at her life, doing the soul work of self-examination, reading voraciously, asking the question, what am I here to learn? West Nile became her teacher. And though it was a long process, and her life now is very different from what she had known before, she is at peace. And in her words, awakened to know her true self. I learned much of what I know about the process of healing from the clients of my psychotherapy practice, in which many were dealing with the early wounds of childhood sexual assault, abuse, family dysfunction. Sitting each week with a kindly witness, they would tell their story. As they slowly peeled back the layers of defense and protection covering their wounded hearts, they began to remember the buried truths, to grieve the losses and the pain, to release the anger of helplessness and destruction. Healing was an unfolding process as they journeyed deep into their inner world, where they could begin to hear and validate the sounds of their own voice, to feel the essence of their being, to know their power and worth, and to reclaim the primacy of their own heart's wisdom. Or in Leonard Cohen's words, my clients, Brene Brown and my friend Deborah, gathered up the brokenness of their experience, and they learned that none are deserving of the cruelty or the grace. They touched the solitude of longing where love had been confined, and they saw that the darkness that tore the light apart, yielding. They came to know that troubled dust conceals an undivided love, as the heart below teaches to the broken heart above. They healed as they learned to live in touch with their own whole heart. It is our task to do the same in these historic times. While the healing we need now from a steady diet of dark and spirit-curdling events and currents of the last year, the process of healing, while the healing we need from the steady diet of dark and spirit-curdling events of the last year is not as life-changing as the experiences in our stories, the process of healing is actually the same. We must go deep and heal from the inside out. We must recognize that the healing that we and the nation need to do is soul work. And we need to remember that we can become disconnected from that vital source, as my own story illustrates. My personal experience of 2020 has been benign and lucky. COVID has not struck my family. I didn't lose my job or miss a meal. Fires, floods, or hurricanes did not threaten my home. Social distancing was not all that burdensome. I stayed away from the ravings of Facebook, but I did watch the evening news each day, drawn by the obligation to bear witness to the darkness sweeping America. Every night, as I watched the evening news, my heart filled with tears at the injustice, the stupidity, and destruction that I saw, and filled with tears of compassion and wonder when those little bits of humanity's best was shown at the end of the broadcast. I was content, not with America, but with my small existence. I brushed my teeth in the morning and I read novel after novel through the days. I was doing the things one should do in our bizarre new normal. Meditating, learning to be with Zoom, connecting with friends and family in safe ways. When asked, "How are you doing?" I said, "Fine," because I was fine. And for some time, I barely noticed that actually my heart was worn and my spirit was gray. For some time, I didn't realize that though I was maintaining, I was not living from the soul. I'd been going through my days directed by my head and personality and habit. The life and vibrancy and regeneration of my heart below was untapped. It has been said that inner healing follows a mindset that leads deep into our core. It was in the process of formulating this sermon that I reconnected with that source. I'd been excited about the theme of healing because that was what my 30-year career was all about. But when I sat down to write a sermon, nothing. The dull sludge of my COVID Trump era mind, so perfect for escape into novel reading, left me longing for inspiration. In that longing, I began to read poems and essays by wise people, chatting with friends about their thoughts and experiences of healing, sitting down to write even when I couldn't think of what to say, meditating with intention instead of habit, consciously opening to the beauties of our heartwarming autumn and the breathtaking first snow of the season. All took me below the surface of my troubled mind and brought me back down in touch with that soul energy that brings vitality into my life, that makes it so much more than fine. I was reminded that we don't reach a forever healed state, as life continues to wound and healing is an ongoing action, calling for attention and intention. There's an intriguing story in the Bible about healing. There was a pool in Jerusalem that was said to heal the first person to get into the water on the occasions when it stirred. There was a man there, an invalid, who'd been lying by the pool for 48 years. Jesus saw the man there and asked him, "Do you want to be healed?" "Sir," the man replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred, and while I'm trying to get in, someone else gets down there ahead of me." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your bed, and walk." And the man did. Whoa, 38 years by the pool, and he picks up his bed and walks. Now, I'm not going to get into the theology here. I really don't know what this story means. But I bring it up because I heard a sermon once that explained that Jesus's words, "Do you want to be healed?" would literally be translated as, "Is it your purpose to be healed?" Whether this story is about a miracle or a challenge, we have that heart and soul question before us now? Is it our purpose to be healed? As Unitarian Universalists, we feel a strong responsibility to heal the world, to heal our entrenched political systems, our gender and racial inequality and injustice, our poverty, our health care, our planet. You know all the things. To approach and meet that task, we must engage in the process of healing. We're familiar with the phrase, physician, heal thyself. The first book assigned at my therapy training school was entitled The Wounded Healer. We must recognize our own wounds and limitations, and with intention go deep into our inner worlds for that wise, whole, brave part of self, the soul energy that seeks wholeness, sees truth, accepts the brokenness, and embraces the light. If we're going to be a part of the healing world, we must be ever mindful and supportive of our own healing, our own personal access, and of that part of ourselves that carries our true process, our true purpose. From that place, not from our heads or from our activist fervor, we will bring healing into the world. Not because we're do-gooders, because it is our deep, personal, collective purpose to be healed and whole, just as it is the purpose of the branches to lift the little bud, and the purpose of the arteries to purify the blood. May it be so. I invite you now to join me in meditation.
Bring yourself out of that meditative place. We will now have our closing song, How Can I Keep from Singing? And please do not keep from singing. Sing along at home.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, no far off hymn that hails a new creation.
No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing?
Although the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. And though the darkness round me grows, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? see the blue above it, and day by day this pathway smooths, since first I learned to love it. No storm can shake my inmost calm. I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? 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 Keep singing. Keep singing. Keep singing. Keep singing.
I invite you now to place your hands over your heart for our closing blessing from John O'Donohue, a blessing prayer in difficult times. May you know tender shelter and healing blessing when you are called to stand in the place of pain. May the places of darkness within you be surprised by light. May you be granted the wisdom to avoid false resistance. And when suffering knocks on the door of your life, may you be able to glimpse its hidden gift. May you be able to see the fruits of suffering.
May memory bless and shelter you with hard-earned light of past turmoil to remind you you have survived before. And though the darkness is now deep, you will soon see the approaching light. May this give you confidence and trust. May a window of light always surprise you. May grace heal your wounds.
I will now extinguish our chalice flame. but may the light of healing stay with you throughout the week. Go in peace. Now, for those of you who wish to join in our virtual coffee hour, stay